Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am so excited for this video and it is long overdue. I hope you've seen my original Living in Boise Pros and Cons video, and if you haven't, go and watch it when this one is over so you can compare them. I made that video May 23rd of 2020 and I had no idea what was coming with the onslaught of everyone visiting and moving here to the beautiful area of Boise, Idaho. But since things have changed so much since May of 2020, we have got to take a look back and see if the pros and cons of living in Boise, Idaho still hold true. And if not, then what has changed? This video is a little bit longer than usual, but I promise I will go over things here that you have not heard before, so it's worth watching. So let's jump into it and take a look back. Let's start with the number one thing I get asked by every single out-of-state client. Is Boise safe? And the answer is yes. Boise was even ranked the 8th safest city in the world. I don't know if Boise is still considered the 8th safest city in the world, but it still holds true even after all the influx of everyone moving here in the last 4 years, that Boise and the surrounding cities are still considered very safe. You'll hear the locals complain that they think crime is on the rise from the influx of the population and the trickle-down effect from all that can change. But in actuality, according to the county crime records, crime has actually decreased anywhere from 8 to 14% in the cities of the Treasure Valley. The larger cities like Boise, Nampa, and Caldwell have a crime rate of anywhere from 25 to 39% lower than the national average, while the smaller cities like Star, Eagle, and Meridian, well, they have a crime rate anywhere from 65 to 79% lower than the national average. So I'd say that's pretty good. So is there crime in the valley? Absolutely, and some of it has not been great. Boise area is not utopia after all, but it is still much, much safer than many cities in America. And so this is still a huge pro for living in the Boise, Idaho area. Okay, let's go on to the next pro. Another huge reason people love living in Boise is all of the amazing outdoor recreation. There's almost anything that you could want to do here. So absolutely, the amazing outdoor recreation opportunities in the Boise area are still a huge pro to living here. But what has changed is some accessibility. So we used to be able to go on some of the popular hiking trails and not see too many people, or go to some place like Redfish Lake and not have too many people around. Now, all the mainstream popular recreation spots are quite crowded, and Idaho State Park System has not done anything yet to catch up with growth, like provide more parking. Even many of the dirt roads in the mountains get lined with RVs all weekend now in the summer. But our ski resort, Bogus Basin, they've done a lot to accommodate for the larger crowds, so that is good. And so if you want to recreate with fewer people, you'll have to get way off the beaten path. But with 61% of Idaho being public lands and 14% of those public lands are wilderness area, so there is plenty of space and opportunity for everyone to get outside. And the next pro is a doozy to look back on. Now this next one kind of depends on where you are moving here from, but in general, Boise is very affordable and the cost of living is one of the main reasons people move to Boise. The average price of a home right now in Ada County is right around the $370,000 mark. Okay, so that has changed a lot in the last 4 years. I made a video about the cost of living here last year, so I'll put that in the description below for you to check it out. But I am going to say that I know the prices have gone up so much, it's still a pro. I'll tell you why. The Boise area is still considered affordable. So I know you're all going to disagree in the comments, and our cost of housing prices themselves have gone up significantly. There's no doubt about it. So what did I say the average cost of a home was in May of 2020 again? Right around the $370,000 mark. Well, now for Ada County, the average cost of a home in November of 2023 was $530,000. So if you're coming from somewhere like Huntington Beach, where you can't buy an average 1,800 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home for under $1 million, our average price point for a home here in Boise is pretty affordable. If you're coming from someplace like Illinois, then our average price point of a home is not. But our overall cost of living, our food, gas, property taxes, utilities, all that kind of stuff, it's still much more affordable here than in many places. So it still makes a city of choice for retirees. And so I will still say that affordability is a pro. Okay, on to the next one. Another fantastic thing about living in Boise or in Idaho in general is all of the wonderful school choices. Yes, Idaho still has all the wonderful school choices for public, private, charter, magnet, and homeschools, and all the freedom to choose what's best for your child. I have a video all about that as well, so I am going to link that below if you want more details on the school systems and how they work here. But what has changed is something very interesting. So before 2020, Idahoans, they didn't really choose a house based on a school. I mean, sometimes they did, but we didn't have zip codes that homes were worth more money in because of that school or that school district. And part of that is because we have open enrollment for the schools here. But in general, all the schools are pretty safe. Their education is pretty similar, and people just chose a house based on the location and what house they liked, and then they just sent their kids to whatever school was close by, and maybe a charter school if that worked out better for their child. Well, in other states, especially California, people are used to the idea that certain schools have to be better, and then you have to live in the area where the better schools are. And I can understand that, especially when they are dealing with very real issues of safety and how the districts are allocating their funding. So a new thing that has popped up here in the last 4 years is that now people, pretty much only the newcomers, they think that certain schools must be better than others because they are located in certain areas. And I'm going to be blatantly honest here. Usually people base that idea hugely on the income levels of the people in that area. So I don't know what to call it, but the idea that one school or one school district is somehow better than another has been a change that has come in the last 4 years. And I don't know if it's really warranted. It does make me a little sad because it is beginning to create more distinct groups, and Boise used to always be a good, happy mix of everyone. Okay, on to the next pro. Another great thing about living in Boise, Idaho is a small town feel with all the fantastic things that you would expect from a big city. There's always something going on in downtown Boise for everyone. Yes, this is still a pro. I love this aspect of Boise so much. There is so much to do, and the city is still clean and still accessible. So I will still consider this a pro, but there have been changes. We used to be able to go downtown on a Friday or a Saturday night and find parking on the street and not have to use a parking garage. But just recently, the last time we went downtown for dinner a few weeks ago, there was no parking on the street and the parking garages were almost full. And there used to never be any waits at restaurants. That was a long time ago, but now it's like an hour wait. So I recently went to the Hot Air Balloon Festival downtown, and in the past, it was well attended, but not overly crowded. And this year, they said there were about 30,000 people there. So I am still very glad that so many people enjoy downtown Boise and all the activities there are for families and everybody. But I am a little bummed at how crowded it can get. So the next pro. One thing I really appreciate about living in Boise, Idaho is it is a very healthy city. It has been ranked in several different magazines as one of the healthiest cities in the United States. So this one hasn't really changed. Boise is still a very healthy city. I spend a lot of time helping out-of-staters around as they search for homes, and it's a pretty common comment to hear that they're surprised at how many people are outside running, biking, on the trails, walking dogs. We have the farmers markets, and if you know where to find it, we have great resources for local foods and meats as well. And the last pro I had mentioned in the old video is that everybody is just kind and respectful. Well, maybe not everyone, but the majority of the people here in Boise are. Yes, this is still a pro as well. People are still kind and respectful. They'll hold the door open for you, they'll wave you into traffic, and talk with strangers in line at the store. However, there have been some changes here. So pre-2020, most Idahoans really could care less what political persuasion you were. We were all just people part of the same community, helping each other out. But as more and more people began to move here in order to escape liberal states, politics have become more prominent. Not as prominent as in most of the states that you guys are moving here from, but most Idahoans really still just want everyone to get along and help each other out. I think that before 2020, everyone just sort of trusted that everyone here was looking out for each other. But with all of the newcomers, there's been an introduction of some mistrust from both sides. The newcomers want to assimilate into Idaho culture, but of course they do bring some of their old with them. And that's not necessarily a bad thing to change a little bit, Idahoans, if you need to. But the Idahoans aren't so sure if they can trust the newcomers not to completely change the state. So in general, though, everyone is still kind and helpful, so much so that it is the first thing people notice when they come to spend any time here. But watch out for those online forums or comment sections. Please know that their hateful comments are not a true representation of the people in the Boise area. And then there's a con I had that I'm going to change to the pro list. Let's see what it was. Now, in general, I do like the airport in Boise. It's super easy to get in and out of, and it's not very crowded. But I have to put this on the con list because we tend to travel more living in Boise because it's kind of isolated and because most of our family does not live here. And Boise almost never has direct flights to any other city. So I'm going to say that the Boise airport is a huge pro to our area. They have added a ton of direct flights, and as of today, they have 25 direct flights to places like Dallas, Chicago, Atlanta, and of course the very popular LAX, Orange County, Long Beach, and San Diego, just to name a few. They just added a new parking garage, and their cell phone lot was pathetic. It still is, but they're adding a real one, so that will be good when it's done. And the airport is easy to get in and out of, and it's easy to get to, but it is getting crowded. The last several times I've flown, I've had to wait in the security line for 20 to 30 minutes. And I'm not quite sure if that's from population growth or just them being understaffed, as there's usually like one person working at the front. But I do love the Boise airport now that I can get to my main travel destinations directly. Okay, and going back to the other cons. For you want to hear the bad things about living in Boise. So I'm going to start with the one that I hate, and that is the inversion. So the inversion is in the winter, usually comes in January, and that is when the cold air sits in the valley with this gray cloud layer and the warm air goes above. Of course, the inversion hasn't changed. We still get the inversion. We had it this year for several weeks off and on. But then the last couple of years, we didn't have the inversion at all. Some people think it will get worse as the population grows, but the inversion itself is a weather pattern. We either have it or we don't. However, when we have inversion, it does trap the air in the valley, so it would seem as if the air quality during inversion could get worse as the population grows. Although I have a science degree, but I have no data on that. So we still see the possibility of inversion in the winter, of course, and I still go to a sunny vacation spot every February or March. And this year I'm headed to Mexico. So the next con is the poor city planning for growth. So this is still a con. I mean, in some ways, well, all the ways. So because of the growth, the highway and road planners did have to step it up and start doing something to the roads to help with all the growth. So yes, there are now roundabouts all over the place where there used to be four-way stops, especially south of the freeway. So that was helpful. They are widening roads all over town, and they haven't really planned more wisely as to zoning for future use, making room for schools or parks and shopping. But with all of the road improvements has also come construction all over. And this isn't really in Boise proper itself because most of the city of Boise itself is pretty much built out, except for a few areas. But the road construction is all over where there are the most new homes, so like in Star and in North Nampa and generally south of the freeway. There have been a few more larger planned subdivisions put in, but still nothing really like in some states where they plan the homes with schools and shopping. Although there is one new master plan subdivision that is supposed to be like that, that's coming to Eagle, called Valnova, and it is still in its infancy, but I'll put the link to the video I made about that down below, so if you want to, you can check it out. So the city planning and roads is still a big con in the Boise area. They get a big thumbs down. All right, and the next con was
low wages. Idaho's minimum wage is still $7.25.
So would you believe that in 2024, the minimum wage in Idaho is still $7.25 an hour? The wages here have not caught up to the cost of housing in the least, or the salaries offered here. However, most employers do offer a minimum wage of $12 to $15 per hour for a starting wage, or they won't get any workers. But with all of the people who've moved here who are retired or who work from home with out-of-state salaries, they can afford the cost of the housing. So local wages here are still a con. And the last con.
And it is a little bit isolated.
Yes, Boise is still geographically isolated. Nothing's going to change that, but you get used to it, and it's not hard to hop on a flight somewhere or take a drive somewhere to Seattle or Salt Lake if you want a change of scenery. One thing is for certain, once you live in the Boise area, you are always very grateful to come back and have such a wonderful place to call home. It's true, I do fly a lot to visit family in California, and on the return flights, people are always talking, they're friendly, and I always hear conversations about when did you move here? How do you like it? Where do you live? And they always talk about how grateful they are, how glad they were to be able to go back and visit, but then they are so glad to be back in Idaho. And that is one more huge pro I will add to the list this year. People in the Boise, Idaho area are grateful to live here. And when you come, you will feel something different. It's not something you can name, but it just feels good. And I hear that comment from people all the time. I don't know what it is out Boise, but something is different here. And since I made that video in 2020, I can hardly believe it, but my team and I have helped more than 100 families relocate from out of state so that they too can call Idaho home. If you're thinking of calling Boise home, reach out to us at the website, summerastonrealestate.com. You can give me a call or a text. We'll set up a time to chat, and we are happy to help you relocate too. Of course, there are a ton of videos you can check out all about moving to the area and living in Boise to help you decide if Boise is right for you. And we have free guides and tons of information on our website. You can follow us on Instagram for more information as well. Make sure you subscribe to get all the latest videos. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time.